Joram of Israel by Ginzberg. Of Joram, the son of Ahab, it can only be said that he had his father's faults without his father's virtues. Ahab was liberal, Joram miserly, nay, he even indulged in usurious practices. From Obadiah, the pious protector of the prophets in hiding, he exacted a high rate of interest on the money needed for their support. As a consequence, at his death he fell pierced between his arms, the arrow going out at his heart, for he had stretched out his arms to receive usury, and had hardened his heart against compassion. 53. In his reign only one event deserves mention, his campaign against Moab, undertaken in alliance with the kings of Judah and Edom, and ending with a splendid victory won by the allied kings. Joram and his people, it need hardly be said, failed to derive the proper lesson from the war. Their disobedience to God's commands went on as before. The king of Moab, on the other hand, in his way sought to come nearer to God. He assembled his astrologers and inquired of them why it was that the Moabites, successful in their warlike enterprises against other nations, could not measure up to the standard of the Israelites. They explained that God was gracious to Israel because his ancestor Abraham had been ready to sacrifice Isaac at his bidding. Then the Moabite king reasoned that if God set so high a value upon mere good intention, how much greater would be the reward for its actual execution, and he, who ordinarily was a sun worshipper, proceeded to sacrifice his son, the successor to the throne, to the God of Israel. God said, "The heathen do not know me, and their wrongdoing arises from ignorance, but you, Israelites, know me, and yet you act rebelliously toward me." 54. As a result of the 7 years' famine, conditions in Samaria were frightful during the great part of Joram's reign. In the first year, everything stored in the houses was eaten up. In the second, the people supported themselves with what they could scrape together in the fields. The flesh of the clean animals sufficed for the third year. In the fourth, the sufferers resorted to the unclean animals. In the fifth, the reptiles and insects. And in the sixth, the monstrous thing happened that women crazed by hunger consumed their own children as food. But the acme of distress was reached in the 7th year, when men sought to gnaw the flesh from their own bones. 55. To these occurrences the prophecies of Joel apply, for he lived in the awful days of the famine in Joram's reign. Luckily, God revealed to Joel at the same time how Israel would be rescued from the famine. The winter following the 7 years of dearth brought no relief, for the rain held back until the first day of the month of Nisan. When it began to fall, the prophet said to the people, "Go forth and sow seed." But they remonstrated with him, "Shall one who hath saved a measure of wheat or 2 measures of barley not use his store for food and live, rather than for seed and die?" But the prophet urged them, "Nay, go forth and sow seed." And a miracle happened. In the ant hills and mouse holes they found enough grain for seed, and they cast it upon the ground on the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th day of Nisan. On the 5th day of the month rain fell again. 11 days later the grain was ripe, and the offering of the omer could be brought at the appointed time, on the 16th of the month. Of this the psalmist was thinking when he said, "They that sow in tears shall reap in joy." 56.